Hi, my name is Dave Reske, CEO of Mass Speed Marketing, and welcome to this edition of Marketing in the Now, where we tell stories of rapidly scaling businesses that leverage the best in digital marketing. And my guest today is Melanie LoBue. She's a fractional chief marketing officer who partners with B2B organizations, primarily in tech and financial services, to map growth marketing strategies and execute against them with go-to-market campaigns. Melanie, welcome to the show.
Hi, David. Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Yes, Melanie, we've been doing marketing, digital marketing, and content marketing for some time. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen over the years?
I think one of the bigger shifts in my career has been the shift to revenue focused marketing. Where it used to be that marketing and sales teams were totally separate entities, or there was just content and kind of doing its own thing, and now everything is joined, typically underneath a chief revenue officer. But either way, marketing just less of looked at less as a cost center and more as a revenue driver. I think that's been the biggest change over time that I've seen, which I'm happy to say. I think that's a good thing for marketers. And then now I think more recently is the AI kind of takeover and what we're experiencing there, and that's really exciting as well.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about both of those things, but those are huge topics. This podcast, as we talked about, is all about stories of scaling, and I would love to hear some of your thoughts about, or maybe some of your experiences where digital marketing has made a big impact on scaling a business. Can you think of any examples from your experience where that's really made a difference?
Yeah, it's funny, David. I was thinking about some examples of scaling, and I kept just coming back to the same story I see over and over again, where there are overinflated marketing teams, and scaling oftentimes means, unfortunately, layoffs or elimination of roles. And I've just seen that time and again at multiple companies. I think a lot of times. Marketing teams don't have an objective that's clear, and it's not clearly tied to the company objective, and that's a real problem. And that leads to a lot of specialists sometimes early on or too soon, without kind of people being able to flex and mold themselves into different positions and just try to get all the jobs done early on. And that leads to a lot of challenges and, unfortunately, role eliminations.
Interesting. So let's talk more about that and just, from your experience of how that really plays a part. Let's first talk about the objectives part. So you've seen examples of where objectives are not clear. So can you think of some examples, or maybe a structure where objectives are really clear? Like what should be the clearest marketing objectives and how should that be like structured?
Yeah, I mean, that I always follow the money. That's really what it comes down to. And so you have a revenue goal for the company. What do they need to earn this year? What do they need to earn month over month? And then where does that come from based on previous experience? Is that monthly recurring revenue from existing clients? Is that new logos, new business? And then marketing builds their target off of that. So, okay, we know marketing can drive, best practice. Let's say it's around 30%, maybe more, maybe a little bit less, but let's say we're trying to get in that area. So how can we drive 30% of that? And then we can understand. So we're targeting customers versus we're targeting new business, et cetera. And that's really the mission statement of marketing. And until you get that, you're really just guessing, because you don't know who your target audience is, you don't know who you're going after, and you're not sure what products are working and what you're trying to sell. So without that objective stated up front, and stated up front, not just in a town hall meeting, but stated up front in every single meeting you have. That's the focus. That's the North Star. And then you can build your strategy right off of that.
Well, I can almost imagine, a spreadsheet where you've got, sales goals, you've got revenue objectives for the companies, you've got sales goals, those translated to, leads that they need. And that you can do all the math by, average customer size, conversion from lead to customer, conversion from, advertising to lead, all of that. So it sounds like you've got deep experience in kind of building those kind of models and then thinking about marketing campaigns and programs based on all that. Is that kind of the way it works when you
That's
think about
pretty
it?
much it. It's a trickle down from the top like that. Yes.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So let's say you do all that, do that to create your marketing budget and your plan. What's the role of let's call them brand building or other activities that don't fall directly into that in marketing. So let's say you want to do PR or build your brand, or there's also obviously investments in marketing operations or infrastructure that don't fall clearly in that lead generation, demand generation piece. How do you budget for all that and think about all that in a marketing team?
Yep, and it's so important, and I don't mean to dismiss any of those things. They're incredibly important, I think. But again, unless you have that clear goal and objective up front, you can't justify budgeting for those other pieces. So, meaning, how can brands succeed if we don't understand who our target audience really is? Where are we getting the most bang for our buck? Essentially, is it our existing customers? Is it our new logos? What type of logos? What is our ideal customer profile? Once we have those objectives set, then we can filter that budget down. And so, uh, I think there's a lot of room um, for brand that still does drive leads. Especially when and I'm thinking scalability from again lower. So I'm looking at going from 0 to 100 or 0 to 50. That's really where I specialize. So everything has to be a little lead gen focused.
Mhm.
But there are ways to look at brand and how it can impact revenue. How are we driving? What is our website metrics? What are we looking at there? How many people are visiting, how many new users, what's our social media engagement looking like, what are our email opens and click throughs and things like that. And that does tend to filter into lead generation. It's not as clean of a line, I think, as most people would like or as a CEO might like, but you can tell a story there that helps to yes, but we're getting eyeballs, we're getting reach, we're getting PR in the right places, and we know that people are seeing our brand and that we're becoming top of mind.
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. So, in your experience, and I'm sure the tools you've used over the last few years have changed. Maybe the tools you were using 10 years ago, 5 years ago today. But, in the last 12 months, what tools are making or channels are making the greatest impact? Because you've got, you build your entire campaign plan and marketing is sales says I need this many leads. And, this is how what I need in order to fulfill my goal to drive revenue. And then your responsibility is to hit those objectives. And I'm sure you can invest in all kinds of different things. And inexperienced marketers, in what I've seen, just throw a lot of money at different things, hoping something will work. But
Right.
based on your experience, what is the place of greatest leverage these days? Where do you get the biggest bang for the buck
It
in
always depends.
campaigns?
I hate the answer, it depends, but it really does
Yeah.
depend on the client and what their needs are and where they tend to resonate. But I'd say generally speaking, it's still a lot of the traditional stuff that's working. There, in spite of all the new tools and all the new AI, it's still a lot of the traditional work that just works. And that's email marketing, events, are doing, I think, very well right now. I'm seeing a real uptick in people attending and the engagement levels at in-person events. So the same old things, I think are coming back. I'd say content that works, but not AI written content. Perhaps, yes, I'm not saying you shouldn't use it or couldn't, for to leverage it in certain ways, but really thoughtful content that drives SEO is still extremely impactful in terms of driving website traffic and leads. So a lot of the tried and true methods, just done well, are still working.
Yeah, so email, events,
Yep.
and if let's talk about maybe two different cases. If you're starting from scratch, like you got to start up, they're just trying to get off the ground. I'm
Yep.
talking about a new client, potential new client this week about that. And they're just trying to get off the ground. Where do you recommend? Where do they start? That new client. Maybe they don't have an email list. They haven't really done advertising before. They're trying to figure out where to go to their first event. They just finished their first website. Where do they go to kind of get off the ground?
Well, one, they have to make sure they understand who their audience is, and hopefully they have a good sense of that. And maybe they're still kind of guessing, but they need a target. And with that, I mean, number one baseline is your website, driving traffic to that website, and you can get a lot of conversions organically and very inexpensively if you do SEO correctly. So
Mhm.
that's backlinking and writing and just making sure that and maybe a little video work, but just making sure your site is clear and clean, and has those calls to action, that's the number one table stakes. It has to be done. Um, and then, then you can venture out. Of course, you want once the website is in a good place, then you can put paid media against it. A lot of people put paid media against a website that doesn't work, and that's a problem. You're wasting dollars that way. But then I would say that would be second, and then branching out. You want to meet your customers where you are. So if you are in an organization that where events and in person building those relationships will work and resonate, then that would be another area I'd certainly recommend looking into.
Yeah, that makes sense. So get the website right. Make sure you understand, the message and the customer and the product and the differentiator, and get the content on the website right. Then sounds like you can leverage paid media against that. Once that's working, get some traffic to that, get those conversions working. I'm sorry, SEO you said as well as a key piece of that with content, and then start to. I love what you said. Meet your customers where they're at. Get out there, do the events, and make that happen. So you're doing that. Let's say that particular customers are, that startup is now 2 years old. They're 5 or 10 million revenue. They've got small sales team. They're making it happen. Where do they expand from there? Do they continue to focus on those 3 or 4 core activities? Do they expand from there? Where do you go from those core activities?
I mean, that's when you can really start. You can start branching out a bit. You've got maybe a little bit more budget to play with. More clearly who your customers are, and so this is where you can start doing more account based marketing activities. So, and that's really just account based marketing is kind of still a buzzword for just good marketing. We're just going after people in more of a one to one type of relationship, or a one to few type of relationship. So that might be direct mail, that might be gifting, um, that might be, just clean messaging to very specific companies or people, that will traditionally qualify as a marketing lead and convert into sales.
Yeah, and that can be really effective. So, talk to me about what your thoughts are on gifting strategies, because I think that is. I just talked to another firm about that, and they're very high on that, and that seems to have works well for some people.
Right.
Is that something all firms should be doing? Should people be, are people on the buyers, are they receiving gifts from everybody, right now? Are they getting inundated with gifts?
Right, right.
Is there
I don't know.
diminishing
Nobody sends me
returns?
any gifts. Are you getting gifts, David?
I'm
I'm
not
getting
getting any
gifts, right?
gifts.
I
No.
get a lot of sales calls, and I don't get any gifts. So, I you know it. Some companies have policies where you're not able to gift them, so you have to be very careful about that. A lot of
Yeah.
times in finance, but I think it's not. You shouldn't. The whole point of it is that you would only be sending it to maybe 5 or 10 people. And these are people that you have been vetted that will really convert. Maybe some more than 10 people, but you're not. This is not a spray and pray method of marketing. This is very direct one-to-one marketing. And so it would be ideally be something highly personalized, like a book that's signed by the author, that that this person likes, or something that it's just something that personally resonates with them or with your business. So does it work for every company? No, I don't think that this should be something that every single company does. It's also tends to be more expensive. So you want to be really careful that you've chosen the leads that are more likely to convert at that point. So it's also a timing thing. It's not necessarily a cold outreach. You get a gift right away, maybe along the sales process, or maybe it's an upsell, cross sell opportunity for an existing customer. So I think just being thoughtful about the approach, based against the budget, is what really makes the difference there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I talked to a lot of potential clients that are frustrated with marketing,
Yep.
and where the common complaints are, "Hey, I spent a bunch of money on PPC and demand gen, it didn't work. I got my website and it feels out of date. I put all this content out there and I didn't get the SEO results that I wanted. I'm going to events, but I'm not getting the conversions." So, in your experience, what are the mistakes that marketers or maybe companies make when they're trying to execute on these campaigns and they're not working the way they want them to do? What are the common mistakes you see?
The biggest one, and even this happens so often at companies that have been around for 10, 20 years, is that they never put pen to paper in terms of who their target audience is.
Mm.
It's simple as that. Or they will have like kind of a generalized idea in their heads, but again, it's not pen to paper. And the difference is that this is our ICP, this is our target, and we're sharing that with everyone internally at the company. Every single person knows who that target is, knows what type of messaging will resonate with that person, understands that person or people's um, pain points and the solutions that the company provides to hit those pain points. And that's 95% of the problem typically that I see over and over and over again. And then from that, you build out the brand. And sometimes the brand just isn't solidified and you go in and there's just a lot of different products that serve a lot of different reasons, a lot of different challenges. And maybe there's too many products or there's, or there's something that just resonates with one type of person, but not the majority that's driving the revenue. And so it's just a prioritization and an organization. It's usually not a marketing challenge, it's an organizational challenge. Again, going back to that, and I just don't mean to keep repeating, but it does go back to the revenue and following the money. Where is it coming from? Where are we targeting? What are we doing? And just it filters down, and that's the best way to manage that.
So you've got alignment between the sales or objectives and the marketing objectives. What happens when the ICP is different between marketing and sales? So
That's a
yeah, I can imagine, and I've seen this with clients. Like one sales team says, "Hey, we have to make our revenue goals. We're going to get clients wherever we want. We're just going to go
Sure.
out. We're making cold calls. We got people out there." And marketing, and like maybe in that case, is like super focused on one particular vertical. One, maybe marketing is really focused, but sales is unfocused. Another example might be where marketing is all over the place, putting out content. They're kind of leads from all over, and then the sales team is very disciplined and really focused. So what happens in those mismatch situations?
Sales and marketing has to talk. They should talk every day. So when I'm a fractional or when I was working full time, I would have conversations with my sales leaders every single day, if not salespeople on the front lines every day. That just there has to be that collaboration point. Otherwise, it doesn't work. They are not two separate entities. I'd argue that they are more similar than not. And so there has to be alignment on who we are targeting. I think marketing's job. I can't speak as much to sales, but marketing's job is to say, "Hey, team, we've identified that these are the ICPs. Ideally, we've agreed on that. We should be agreeing that these are the ICPs. This is the month we're going to do a campaign here. This is the month we're going to do campaign here. Here's our timeline, and they should have that in advance. And these are the tools that you can use that will be helpful. These are the sales enablement assets, whether they be here's a webinar that we did, or here's an infographic, whatever that may be, that they can also share with their prospects. And so we're aligned on all of that together. So I'd say that's a big red flag if they're not aligned and going in different directions.
Well, how much input should the sales leaders have on the marketing campaigns that are going out? Should it be driven by the sales team? Hey, we need these tools. We need to be at these events. We need to be running these campaigns, or should it be driven by marketing, who,
Mhm.
here we've identified the target customer. We know what events to go into. We know what content they need. Who should be driving this, and how, if both are driving it, how does the alignment happen?
Right.
How, how do you get there?
How do
Like,
you avoid the chaos of a
yeah,
product that I know
exactly.
you're trying to sell? I think the revenue should drive it. So it's really neither sales nor marketing. It's revenue. So again, what has worked before? What are we following? Where do we win? And follow that. And just looking at the numbers so you can be as data driven as possible about it. So you want to do your best. Especially sales and marketing people tend to be an emotional crowd. So you want to pull the emotion out of it. You want to pull the drama out of it and just focus on the revenue to the best and the data to the best of your ability. It's not always perfect. There are going to be, hey, I have a great idea. Let's try this. Hey, let's try that. Great. And there should be space for that for sure. I think that's really important. There should be space for innovation and new ways of thinking and creativity, of course. But especially when you're first starting out, using the data to try to drive as much as possible of that activity is going to be best. Otherwise, you're spinning wheels and potentially wasting dollars.
Yeah. I want to come back to something you said at the beginning, which is, the problem of specialization, as you grow an organization. So, we talked about that startup example, the startup at the young company, and companies grow. And you talked about, one of the challenges is that you've got maybe specialists that come in that aren't equipped from one phase to the next, perhaps. How do you see kind of the that challenge of kind of building the right marketing team to scale the company really as it grows?
Sure, and it's so hard, I've walked into teams where there's just, like, one person doing everything, and it's really impossible, but then I've walked into teams where there's 10 plus people who aren't really doing anything, and so it can be a tough balance, but in my experience, when you're first starting, really having a strong generalist, I think, is the best, way to go about it. Somebody who can write, but also understands lead generation, somebody who can be creative, but also data driven. And that's kind of difficult to find. But that's really that's what's going to help set up the team for success in the future. And that's the kind of person that can work with sales and drive revenue, but also do a little bit of brand building as well. Um, so, as that starts to expand, my order of operations is typically you need a content person who can start driving the traffic to the website through blog posts and really well written social media, and understands SEO and knows how to drive traffic to the website. That's kind of your primary KPI in the very beginning. Then you want to work those to start converting, but I'd start there. My next hire would be somebody in operations. We need to have a CRM that makes sense, and that might be a sales ops or a marketing ops, but somebody who can help set that up so I can understand the numbers and the data and attribution and what's working and what's not. Otherwise, we're kind of guessing, but we need those dashboards in place so that we can make better decisions going forward. Um, and then I think we're looking at that's really the core team, and you can do a lot with two really strong people, content and ops. Then we can look into paid, like I said earlier. At that point, once the machine is working, then let's put money against paid, against our website and start driving some traffic that way.
It,
So that you start with the generalists and then bring in the specialists later on.
in your experience, what's the best way to leverage agencies or consultants through that process? Should you hire that whole team as you grow up? Should you have agencies or consultants? Or I mean,
Sure.
it always varies, but how do you think about that
I
structure?
Yeah, it depends on who you are able to get as that first core person. If they're strong and can manage those relationships, they can manage some vendors as well. That's really important, or manage agency help. But of course, I'm a big fan of the fractional chief marketing officer model. I think bringing in a full time CMO seems wasteful dollars, especially in that early stage. But if you have a fractional consultant, they can help kind of guide that along up until the point that you're ready to bring in somebody full time. Um, I think there's always a place for outsourcing. I think it's a lot less expensive. Um, but there are a lot of agencies out there and there's a lot of fractionals out there. So you have to be careful on who you hire and who aligns with your business goals.
Well, how do you vet that? How do you find the people that
Right.
are really, the people that are going to be best for the situation that you're working on?
Yeah. I mean, hopefully, you go in with as much information as you can so you understand your own business and are able to understand kind of what you think that you need. I need brand, I need this, I need whatever it is, and you can set up those goals and objectives so you can go in with more information, and understand what that person's specializations are and what that person's capabilities are. Um, you know, it's it, it's it, there's no hard and fast formula for choosing the right. A lot of it is gut instinct, but you just kind of want to find someone you think you can trust, and somebody you can work with, and who's willing to grow with your company. I think one of the things that I will say is, a lot of consultants are consultants and they focus on strategy and they do not focus on execution. So, do you have the team in place that can execute, or do you need to find an agency or a partner that can execute for you? So, great strategy. Thank you for talking to me for an hour, but I need somebody who can actually take this and implement it and get it done. So that's a real key piece, and understand what their timelines are, and hold them to it. So, I think those are some really important steps to take in terms of vetting.
Yeah, and marketing is so interesting because you have to do both of those well, right? You have to have the
Oh,
strategy right. You got to get the message. You got to get the ICP. You got to do that well. But if you can't execute, you got to write the emails, set
right.
up the search campaigns, create the landing pages, build the creative, it's all, there's a ton of stuff
A
to
lot
do.
of work and it's a lot of time, and people don't realize how much time.
Yeah, I'm just going to write an email and send it. I send
Right,
emails all the time. This is easy.
right.
Right? So it's like, well, yeah, it's a different when you're sending it to 10,000. You got to source a
Exactly.
list and vet it. And oh, yeah, it's a so, you're a fractional chief marketing officer. You've got a lot of experience in this area. What kind of companies do you like to work with these days? What's your best client?
Again, I tend to gravitate towards tech and finance. That's just been my traditional experience. And really, ideally in the 0 to 50 million range. So startups or people just starting to get off the ground, who need a lot of that strategy and that execution. And so that's kind of where I kind of fill a void, and help. Uh, having experience to try to, understand the strategy and what needs to happen and then execute against it. And then I personally can scale up or down depending on what they need. So with different types of experts that I partner with. But can certainly also make recommendations about, okay, you're ready for this full-time hire based on the budget. Let's go in that direction as well.
Yeah, that's great. So this has been a great conversation, Melanie. Thank you very much for taking the time. If people
Thank
want
you.
to connect with you, learn more about your services, or figure out how to work with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
It's voyagercomms.com. So it's Voyager Communications, voyagercomms.com.
Great. Well, thanks again for taking the time. Really appreciate you sharing your experience with the audience, and I wish you all the best as you grow your own business.
Thank you very much. Take care. Thanks, David. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.